Cardiff Castle has stood in some shape or form since the time of the Roman Empire. It has been fought over for centuries and has been owned by many of Britain's most notable historic families. To walk through the castle's hallowed corridors and grounds is to pass through 2,000 years of history. One can almost feel the spirit of bygone generations. One can almost sense the passing of time. From the Roman occupation up to the late 17th century, Cardiff Castle has witnessed a turbulent and at times bloody history. The Romans, in their relentless pursuit of conquest and occupation, chose the site for its proximity to the sea. They quickly established a large fortress made of wood as a sheltered base from which they could plan their assaults on native territories. The remains of the ancient Roman walls can still be seen today, where they were excavated in the late 19th century. Around 400 AD, the Romans left, and the castle fell into disuse for over 600 years, until the arrival of the Normans in the 11th century. Robert Fitzhamon, the first Lord of Glamorgan, claimed the territory solely by right of conquest. He saw the strategic importance of the site and built his stronghold within the ruins of the ancient fort. The keep, or strong point, though originally built of timber, has dominated the site since 1091 and is an impressive example of medieval fortification. Fitzhamon's son-in-law, Robert the Consul, commanded the political scene of the time and was a supreme statesman. His son William, however, was a much weaker and characterless lord, and under his control the castle soon became the quarry of the Welsh princes, seeking to regain control of their native lands. Feud and counter-feud punctuated the subsequent history, until early in the 13th century, when the castle passed through the hands of King John and on to the de Clare family. To secure it against the attacks of the Welsh princes, the de Clares improved the keep and fortified the site with a central wall, linking the keep to the Black Tower. Through marriage, the castle came into the possession of the infamous Despensers, who retained the lordship for nearly a century, until, through marriage again, the castle passed to the Beauchamps. The Beauchamps' contribution to the development of Cardiff Castle can be seen in the octagon tower and lodgings, built upon the west wall. The tower was built here to protect the western approaches of medieval Cardiff. It proved a timely addition. Richard Neville, benefiting from the unusually high prominence of female succession to the estates, became the 21st Lord of Cardiff during perhaps the bloodiest episode in English history, the Wars of the Roses. Neville was also Earl of Warwick and was known as Warwick the Kingmaker. He married his youngest daughter Anne to Richard, Duke of Gloucester, later the much maligned King Richard III. And so it followed that the castle passed back into the possession of the crown and the first of the Tudor kings, Henry VII. The lordship of Cardiff remained in Tudor hands for most of that triumphant dynasty. William Herbert was already firmly linked to the Tudors by his marriage to Anne Parr, sister-in-law of the irrepressible Henry VIII, and it was Sir William who was granted the lordship in 1550, the beginning of an era of relative stability and prosperity. The castle benefited too from the newfound wealth of Elizabethan Britain. The Herberts entertained lavishly, and new living quarters and kitchens were built. The peaceful prosperity of the age was reflected in the Herberts' alterations, which were designed to create a more attractive living area, rather than refortify against intruders. The Herberts also encouraged the flourishing of the arts and literature in the Tudor era. The second William Herbert was a great patron of the arts and a friend of William Shakespeare. His younger brother Philip succeeded him and was to be drawn to the new spirit of parliamentarianism. So when the Civil War broke out in 1642, Cardiff Castle was in the hands of Cromwellian supporters. The castle fell into relative obscurity throughout the late 17th century. But in 1766, the granddaughter of the last of the Herberts married John Stuart, a union which was shortly to bring together the estates in Wales and Scotland, and deliver Cardiff Castle into the hands of its most influential family, the Butes. The Butes trace their ancestry to Robert II and the Scottish throne. They were to own the castle from 1776 until 1947, and were to transform Cardiff from a sleepy backwater to one of the great centres of the Industrial Revolution. In 1778, the Butes employed the renowned landscape artist Capability Brown to redesign the grounds. Brown filled in the moat and cleared away the Norman lodgings. His son-in-law, Henry Holland, who was appointed architect, also pulled down the 16th century additions and set about rebuilding the living quarters. Yet it was the third Marquis of Bute, John Patrick Crichton Stuart, who was destined to make the castle the aesthetic masterpiece it is today. Inheriting his father's great fortune, Lord Bute embarked on an ambitious scheme to completely redesign the castle. He employed the services of the eccentric but brilliant art architect William Burgess. Inspired by the Romantic revival in medieval culture and art, Burgess and Lord Bute set out to produce a building that combined the sumptuous decorative art of the 19th century with the romantic nobility of the Middle Ages. Their work was a triumph, and their partnership became one of the great patron-artist relationships in British architecture. The result is a design that captures magnificently the rich history of the castle and its ancestors. It also reflects the astonishing talents of local craftsmen. The resilient walls and corridors of Cardiff Castle have been witness to the momentous events of British history for almost 2,000 years. Throughout all the comings and goings, the dispossessions and inheritance, one resident has remained permanently. time. Today, the ornate and beautiful clock tower stands in memoria to the testament of time. The modern-day inhabitants of Cardiff can hear the chimes of the hour resound across the city.